I want to do a video based on a few things I've read recently about Ecuador being a socialist country. If you're coming here, I think it's important to know and understand that. A big excitement here. That's my washing machine, and from Juan El Huli. I had this new dryer delivered, LG, but I have to get a pigtail for it, so it plugs into the 220. Is Ecuador a socialist country? And if so, will it become another Venezuela? It's great questions, and they do come up. And you have a number of expats here in this country that came here because they are essentially socialists at heart, and they're looking for that socialist utopia. Now, if you are a student of history, you know that the socialist utopia has never existed. It has always failed. There's no examples in history of success of socialism, communism. So, what is Ecuador? We have a self-proclaimed president that he's a socialist, and his university studies are in economics. Is he a socialist? Is Delta playing with her favorite squeaky toy? Well, I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. If I were to say, in my opinion, I think he's a pragmatist. Ecuador has some socialistic policies. It has a pretty affordable healthcare system. And it functions here because it doesn't have insanely inflated prices on everything. From lab tests, doctors, hospitals, medicine, prices are realistic. A doctor's visit, a good doctor, is $20, and he'll do house calls. Now, it might cost you $25 or $30, but he'll come to your house. You won't find that in the USA because costs are prohibitive. Because it's open to the world market for medicines, hence more competition. Socialism? Yeah. More competition, lower prices. It's also not, medicines aren't hostage to the medical machine. You can go to a pharmacy and buy over the counter pretty much anything, with a few exceptions. And there's Beta with her favorite hobby, just laying there watching. So where does the socialism come into play? Well, I don't know if it's necessarily socialism. It's the role of a government to have projects like dams for hydroelectricity, rebuilding the roads across the country. They have somewhat of a decentralized government. Cities have mayors that have a lot of power in decisions. They have their own budgets. You have provinces that have their own government. The idea of the socialism came with Korea in that he wanted to change the lot of the poor in this country. And there was a lot of poverty, and while there's still poverty from first world standards, everybody has food to eat, everybody has reasonable cost transportation and that sort of thing. And he made a lot of headway there. On the other hand, he also had a lot of funds from oil that they essentially had no real investment in. Now, when the oil prices took a dive, a lot of these programs have taken a hit. But is there socialism? The free market is entirely in control of the economy here. Mom and pop businesses thrive. That's all the businesses, they thrive. Government has essentially one tax. It's a 14%. You pay at the counter tax. You don't have an income tax, that sort of thing. It's not completely business friendly, but somewhat. It does get carried away with regulations and that sort of thing. However, let's look at the United States. In the last 15 or 20 years, it's become a very socialistic country. Even before Obamacare. Most of the budget is made up of socialist programs. Now, I'm not making a judgment of whether they're good or bad. I'm just saying they exist. Between welfare and food stamps and disability programs and educational programs, I mean, you can live off the government if that's what you chose to do. You're not going to get that in Ecuador. So, is it a socialist country? It's run by a socialist president who is a pragmatist. Yeah, I wish you'd never learned how to do that. And while there are there is a semblance of socialism in the country, it's essentially a free capitalist society. Free enterprise capitalism thrives here. As compared to the United States, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say socialism in Ecuador is a 2, in the United States it's an 8. Venezuela, does Ecuador compare to Venezuela? Not in the slightest. It has no comparison. Although the president of Ecuador sympathizes with the president of Venezuela, Morales in Bolivia. That's one of his best friends. He's partial to Cuba, but it doesn't reflect in the country of Ecuador. There are free elections here. I don't know that the people would tolerate it. The people enjoy their freedom, and they can look around and they can see what happened in Cuba. They can look at what's happened in Venezuela, Brazil, in various places that have tried to be socialist in one form or another. And they just see themselves surrounded by disaster. And while socialism always sounds wonderful, it's for the people. In truth, it hurts the people. It always hurts the people. It's just another totalitarian type form of government. And they see that. And so while they allow certain aspects of it in, they don't really allow it to take over, or at least they haven't. And I think the sentiment now is they've gone far enough with that sort of thing. So, is Ecuador socialist? In my point of view, not really. Yeah, you can point to some socialistic programs, but free enterprise and capitalism are alive and well and doing better than the United States.